is charge. Therefore, everything about our house needs to be the dielectric field to hold charge. So as you gradually reduce the metal in your structures, they're able to hold more capacitance and thus support more life force. Yeah? So this is an example of, we're going to discuss the high frequency content and the relationship of high frequencies to dowsing. Specifically, we'll discuss microwave and infrared in this section of the lecture. The background for this is Professor Phil Callahan in Florida has been invited by the State Department of Agriculture to determine why billions of these beautiful little love bugs have been committing hara-kiri by killing themselves on the truck driver's windshield. And they seem to aim for the trucks. So the question became, why? And so Professor Callahan realized it was the smell of the ketone in the diesel fume emission. But then in order to understand how to fix the problem, he had to discover the physics of smell. And in summary, the answer to the question is infrared. And so here's how it works. That the trace ketone in the air, when and only when you have the presence of air movement and the presence of air moisture, then in that case do you get smell. And the way he was able to prove the physics was by taking some of that air that had both moisture and air movement in it, the jostling of the molecules of air creates an infrared. You know what a laser is? Now do you know what a maser is? Now do you know what a Saser is? A sound laser and a microwave laser, right? So the air's ability to pass infrared creates a very narrow permissivity notch where infrared cannot get through the air in a very narrow bandwidth. Turns out to be the key to the sense of smell. So physicists who tell you that your nose is smelling 1 part per billion, per billion, per billion, per billion, per billion molecules is crazy. That's not the physics of smell at all. The physics of the sense of smell is an infrared field effect. As you can tell if you ever talk to any of the good, like Francis Sequoian and Louis Acker, when they wrote the book Handbook of Astrology and talked about the rose smell that filled the room, when they talked about whatever house of the zodiac it was that's associated with it, they didn't bring any roses into the room, but they created the field effect. So what happens is Phil Callahan measured the diameter of the insect antenna and found it was the wavelength in the infrared that corresponded to that sense of smell. So it was the sex spherome smell infrared that was attracting the love bug. So now, do you know why the Anunnaki Teltos said, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, I smell the blood of an Englishman"? In fact, you can smell the blood because there's an infrared and ultraviolet cocooning effect that the light, the cell, the DNA gives off that light when it's excited, literally, yes? So you would smell the blood of an Englishman. Anybody know why the highest percentage of Rh negative blood on the planet is in England? Rh negative means rhesus monkey absent. And the reptilian DNA was recessive to everywhere but jolly old England. Wonder why? Well, Elizabeth from Lizard Born, does that give you any clues? No. So you have to have this, you have to understand the stiff upper lip in Parliament was because when mom's a lizard, you don't get much compassion, so you can't cry, so your lip gets... I think I'm stuck with stiff upper lip. Okay. So anyway, we'll go into those. We'll manage to step on the toes of just about every culture on the planet before we're done. So don't feel anyone's particularly honored. Wait till we get to the Italians, right? Okay. You have Rh negative blood, which is actually rather rare on the planet, but in England, yes, about 10-15%. But you have Rh negative blood, and you're from Angeland, and you have all the Angles from the Ans of Anunnaki and Anu, right? Tuatha De Dan and Daniel, Solari An. So the Ans were those, the sun gods, and that was the lineage of the Dragons, who had Agni, fire, in their blood. Ag, right? The dragons, the Agni. So this is the story we're going to play with. We'll do this, we're going to not go... If we go there now, we won't come back. So But this descendancy from those who still had fire in their blood was the An-Galish bloodline, yes? And so the An-Galish is the language of the An-Guls. So looking at the angles here, we see that the microwave emissions of the pineal epiphyses and the thymus and the pituitary and this was a measure of the microwave emissions of living human glands. And the point is, look, here is the microwave emissions of the glands when they're singing and happy. And now you take those same glands over a geopathic zone, and whoops, the pineal went down to nothing, the thymus. So suddenly the thymus is not able to sing in the microwave, and it's measurable. And you know where they measured this? At the geopathic zones of the water vein crosses under the houses. Just what you were talking about. Who was telling us the story? Yes, just exactly what you were talking about. The inhibition of cellular microwave due to geopathic crossings of the underground water vein structure. Here we're looking at the underground water under Chart. So you're creating a DC magnetic current which is steering the high frequencies. A low frequency, almost DC, a ley line, steering high frequencies, in this case microwave. Well, why would cellular microwave be so critical to facilitating biological communication in general? And here I want to introduce the Bob Dratch microwave scanning emissions technology. Anybody familiar? Well, it's very simple. Bob notices that every time any living human cell uses or stores energy, it always does it by adding or subtracting to the bond distance from adenosine diphosphate to adenosine triphosphate, ADP to ATP. That is a teeter-totter. And the wavelength of that teeter-totter, the quantum distance from ADP to ATP, is measurable in the microwave. And so, in effect, every cellular energy transaction has that wavelength in common. It's the dollar bill of all cellular energy transactions. So in point of fact, if you scan a living cell or a body for that frequency in the microwave, you can make a three-dimensional map of biological fire. Literally, where is metabolism in your body? It's where that spectral emission is focused. So Bob was there in Boulder at Greg Hoag's Metaforms, and Wendy, my friend, was there, and he took this microwave scanner. It's a golden mean cross-section scanning horn gun, and the pickup in the microwave scanner is a gold foil cross in golden proportion, and the microwave amplifier is a waveguide that was an etching off a pyramid wall, literally. Microwave amplifiers, you can only understand them if you have a lot of background in ceremonial magic. It's true. Okay, so literally a waveguide to amplify microwave is what we call a Celtic rune, okay? And insects navigate by them. So he takes this high-gain microwave amp, and he scans Wendy's spine. This is an old story. I've told it before. And sure enough, he takes this little strip chart showing the changes in microwave on down her spine. And he stands there, and he narrates a history of psychological trauma since her youth, looking only at the microwave of her spine. And when he was done, she was crying. Yeah? So he's noticed the geometry of every place in her spine where the microwave can't go, and he mapped the history of psychology's trauma. Yeah? So then he takes the same microwave scanner, and he turns over and steps on the porch, and sure enough, it is the ultimate dowsing tool. So if you want to know where the ley lines are, you check where there's conductivity to that wavelength in the microwave, which we call cellular metabolism. So this is a symbiotic relationship between cell metabolism and the Earth grid. Well, next thing you know, Bob Dratch found that his invention was declared a threat to national security and declared top secret by the CIA. That's how good it was. So the point is that communication at a biological level requires the conductivity in the high-frequency microwave. It's a song line for cell juices. The way I suggest proving to your government that they have to move the microwave tower is by measuring soil compaction under it, because it's a measure of death. So the hazard of microwaves in your cell phone, etc., is very real in my view. and should be avoided at all costs.